welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bree, and on this channel, I like to cover my experience with budgeting as well as other personal finance topics. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I put together my budget for an upcoming trip. So my friend and I are actually going to be doing a weekend trip to Atlanta, Georgia. We're going really to go to a concert, which isn't something I normally do, but this one is a special circumstance. So today I'm going to be going through how exactly I plan for a trip and budget for it as well. So when it comes to vacations, I really like to put together a really good sinking fund for that kind of thing. And historically, it's kind of changed in how I go about it. So for example, years ago, I would typically put maybe about like $170 a month into my sinking fund. And then when an opportunity would arise where we could go out of town or take a trip, I would just kind of use that money I'd been setting aside in order to go on the trip. And then these last 2 years, I actually did a little bit more planning. So we would do annual cruise vacations. And what's nice about those is you can kind of sign up for the vacation well in advance and then start saving for it before you have to pay off the final balance. So I'll take the total amount of money that's left on the balance and then I'll divide it by the number of months until I have to pay that. And that kind of gives me the monthly budget number to target to fund my sinking fund. Now, this year was a little different. I decided to do what I call as an annual budget. So at the beginning of the year, I brainstormed all of the vacations that I really expected I might take this year. So that meant a couple of trips outside of the state and then like a big week-long family trip within my home state. And it came out to about $229 a month that I needed to put aside in order to meet the total that I had allocated for all of those trips. But right after I had put together my annual budget and had everything sorted out, my friend told me about this concert and this band that was coming into town. And she was like, "Can you go? We'd have a place to stay and it would be really convenient. We'd have friends to stay with and hang out with." And at first, I had to say, "Hey, look, unfortunately, I've already put together my annual budget. Like, I don't really know if I can make that work." But then I started brainstorming how could I make a trip like that work outside of the current budget that I set up. And what I realized is something that I did not account for in my annual budget, which I typically don't account for because it's kind of like free fall money, but it's my credit card cashback rewards. So I have a select few credit cards that I use for like grocery shopping, everyday spending, and they all have like a certain percentage depending on the category, and I try to use them that way. And I usually accrue about $30 a month on those. And so I started thinking about, if I keep letting this money build up and I don't use it for anything else, by the time the trip comes around in 6 months, I more than likely can make this work. And so that was how I went about it. So when it came time to start planning for the trip, we decided that we wanted to pick out a few activities to do there since we'd never been there before. And then, of course, I wanted to put together a budget plan so that I knew how much I could anticipate spending, make sure I was covered with the credit card cashback, and get a really good idea of how much I could spend and what exactly I would be spending money on. So when it came to planning out this vacation, the first thing I did was scour the internet looking at articles of things to do in Atlanta. I read through Reddit on recommendations of what to do, and that kind of gave me a really good rough idea of some of the stuff that we could do. And then, of course, my friend had her own list building, and then we came together and talked about what were the things that we were really interested in, and that way we could come up with a pretty rough itinerary of what we would do on this trip. So one of the tools that I really like to use when it comes to budgeting for travel is a Google Sheet. I love it because it's something I can start on my laptop and then I can access on my phone, and it's always with me. So I can always update it on the go. I can always pull it out and kind of remind myself of what I put in there for the day. That way, not only do I make a plan, but I have a higher likelihood of sticking to the plan, or at least if I want to make swaps, I know what I can swap in and out. It's also a really great way to get realistic about all the expenses and make sure I know when I'm going in how much I have to spend and like the wiggle room there. And so today I'm actually going to be using my very own travel budget planner. And this planner is like an all in one tool for me when it comes to planning out my travels. So on the first tab, I actually have my travel budget builder where I can kind of list out the rough activities that we're going to do and then the individual items that I expect I'll spend money on in order to kind of build that budget. And then I have a trip totals page that totals everything up. And then I can add some other expenses that maybe aren't like a daily expense. For example, the rental car or the plane tickets. And then something that I really like to do when I travel is I like to pre-plan my outfits. I find that that makes it really easy to pack. And also when I'm traveling, I kind of already know what I packed for myself for that day, and I can just pull those items out of my bag. And then the last tab in this planner is a packing checklist, which I think is really handy. I have 100 preloaded items in there to help get me started when it comes to packing. And what I like to do is kind of think ahead and click the checkbox on the items that I want to bring. And then when it comes to actually packing, I'll go through and I'll make sure I grab everything and click the checkbox that says packed. And so then when I'm actually on vacation, what I'll do is I'll clear out the second column of packed items. And when it comes time to repack, I know what I packed originally, and I'll just go back through and pack those items again, hitting the check mark to confirm that it's in. And then while I'm on the trip, I can start logging what I'm actually spending so that I can stay on top of my budget and see where I'm at for each day. And then if I want to make any activity swaps, or maybe if there's something that unexpected that comes up, I've got it in there and I'm able to stay aware as the trip goes on. Awesome. So let's go ahead and start putting together the budget for this upcoming trip. So for this trip, I'm flying out on a Thursday. Friday is kind of like a free day for us. So that's where we were trying to come up with the different activities that we wanted to do. And then Saturday is the day of the concert. And then we're flying back on Sunday. So right here in these fields, I like to put like what the main activities that are happening for the day. So again, flying out the first day and then a kind of free day. I really wanted to go and do a hike, so that was my activity of choice. And then my friend wanted to go to the aquarium. I think if I read correctly, the Atlanta Aquarium is the largest aquarium in the US. So I do think that's going to be a really fun experience. And then we're gonna go to the botanical gardens there. I've personally never been to a botanical gardens before, so I'm really excited for this. They're gonna be showcasing Alice in Wonderland as well. So I really can't wait to see what this is all about. And then, of course, we have the concert in the evening. And then on the fourth day, we will be flying back. So on day one, I'm expecting us to at least get dinner, whether that's going to be at the airport or after we land. So I wanted to go ahead and put a budget in of $25 for that. And then for the next day, I again think that we are going to start our day off with a morning hike. And I'm not expecting to spend any money for that. So I'm not budgeting anything for that. And then I anticipate we'll probably want to get lunch out during the middle of the day. So I'm putting in a $25 budget for that. And then for the aquarium, I checked online and the tickets were around $60. So I am putting 65 in just to give you flexibility in case those prices change or fluctuate throughout the day. And then I'm doing an additional $25 for dinner. So I think that's really going to be all of the activities for that free day. And then the next day, we're going to go to the botanical gardens. So I've checked online and those tickets are about $30 a piece. So I've got those factored in. And then we're going to be doing a dinner out. And I think it's going to be more like a dinner and drink situation. So I want to make sure I've got a little bit extra in there for those activities. So I'm bumping that up to $45. And then my friend bought the concert tickets, so I actually owe her for these, and I owe her about $60. And then for the last day that we're there, I think really just making sure I'm covered in case we want to grab lunch at the airport or when we land again. So I'm putting $25 in. So that is everything that I am budgeting for this trip. And I really think I'm going to get a lot of fun out of going to the aquarium and botanical gardens. So I'm pretty good with this. And then one thing that I wanted to update, I'm of course not flying out on Sunday, but I am flying out on Thursday. And what's nice is that this spreadsheet will auto update to the day that you select, and it is set up for 14 days of travel. So now when I go over to the travel budget totals tab, I can see my trip totals. So right at the top, my activities total is $325. And then I did put a 15% adder, just kind of a buffer for myself in case anything goes over. My plane ticket was $96. And then my friend and I are actually splitting the car rental. So I'm budgeting $68 for my portion. And then I wanted to make sure I was covered on gas. So I'm putting $40 in. So that's going to bring my trip total to about $578, which I feel really comfortable with. And the next thing that I like to do when it comes to planning for trips is to brainstorm all of the outfits that I may want to pack. So, what's nice about this is all of my activities are now loaded in as well as the days. So, on Thursday when I'm flying out, I like to go to the airport pretty comfy. Now, my version of comfy may be a little bit different than how other people might think is comfy, but for me, white t-shirt and a pair of comfortable blue jeans is like my airport attire. And then I put tennis shoes just because I thought it would be easier to wear those to the airport versus packing them. And then for that day, I just need a set of pajamas. For the next day, I have an active outfit for the hike. And then I have another outfit that I plan on changing into for the aquarium. And then for the botanical gardens, I've got an outfit picked out and then a different outfit for the concert that evening. And then flying back, right back to my comfy outfit, white t-shirt, pair of blue jeans. And so what I love about this is I like planning for up to 3 outfits. So especially for example, like cruise trips I've taken in the past, typically you have like a morning outfit, then maybe like a beach day outfit and an evening outfit. So I really do think that 3 outfits is the sweet spot. And so what I love about this is now I know exactly what I'm going to be packing for the trip. And not only that, because it's a Google Sheet, I can just pull out my phone each day and kind of remind myself, oh, yeah, that's what I packed for this activity. Let me just pull it out of my bag. And then the last thing in this spreadsheet that I'm really excited about is the packing checklist. So, like I said, it is preloaded with 100 items. So, I've already started to check mark all of the items that I plan on taking that I don't want to forget. And if you feel like you might find value in a spreadsheet like this for an upcoming trip, feel free to check it out in the link down in my description. Thanks so much for watching, and if you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks so much.